Now we are currently live.
Right on.
Yes. So I guess whenever
I'm
you
alive, Trinity. I'm
yes, he's
alive.
alive. So whenever you do your sharing or whatever, we can
Right.
kind of get started and do this
Right.
thing.
All right.
And yeah, good times. Like we've been on a roll lately. By the way, we've been pretty
You been
consistent with
you been
some of
doing
our
it?
shows.
Good.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying to be. Go for
So
it. I'm ready whenever you are.
okay, let's do it. I will run the intro.
Okay.
Shut up and sit down.
Boom. That's all I got.
That's
So you
it.
guys, thanks for coming. So you don't
Now
anyway,
that you know better.
do better. Anyways, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. If you're watching us live on either Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube Live, it is Tuesday and it is Dharma time. That's what that means. Unless you've been listening for the last couple months, then it's not always Tuesday time. We kind of been slacking a little bit. But anyways, I digress. We are live today,
They don't know
Tuesday.
that.
It is Dharma time. He is the one and only, the dope doctor. I like to refer to him as the one percenter. And I
I,
am,
I I would like to refer to myself as a one percenter if that was possible.
and last I checked, I'm still the Dharma guy. So, and this
Yeah.
is Dope and Dharma, of course, the Dharma Time edition. If you guys have been paying attention this week, then earlier you heard us on Monday on was it 1680 AM or 100.7 FM. You heard us talk about alcohol part two on the Couch Live edition. So if you want to catch up on that, you didn't get a chance to do it live, you can watch the video on YouTube, Facebook, or I think it stays up on Twitch for a little while.
Oh, doesn't?
Yeah, I think so.
I've still never visited Twitch. I still
They don't stay
haven't.
up forever like YouTube does, but they stay up for a little while, like 30 days or something, I think maybe.
I
Um,
feel like it's gonna by the time I finally watch Twitch or go to Twitch or get the app Twitch or whatever it is,
right.
that it's gonna be completely out.
Yeah, who
You know what I
knows?
mean? It's gonna be
Right.
like MySpace by the time
Well,
I finally go there.
the good news though is if they don't have any of those apps or they don't want to watch us, they want to
Right,
listen to us like while they're working out or driving,
right.
they could do so on any of their major podcasting platforms. They can always
Hey,
catch us there under, of course, Dope and Dharma. So
can they see us on MySpace, by the way? Yeah, are
on
we available?
MySpace,
Yeah, are
wow,
we available on MySpace?
wow, get off my lawn. Yeah, I don't that is MySpace even. You know what? Last I checked, I think MySpace switched into like this like music, like artist
Is it?
thing. Like yeah, I think so. I don't know.
You know
Anyway,
what's funny is that I get that feeling every time I see somebody with an email, an AOL email.
AOL or Hotmail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
if
the AOL one for sure,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I guess Hotmail is pretty old too.
Hotmail
But
is
like
pretty old.
when I see the AOL, that's it's funny.
Even Yahoo is old, but Yahoo's managed to stay relevant.
Yeah,
You know, where AOL kind of just like, what happened to
yeah,
you?
it's better than that Roadrunner one that I used to have,
Roadrunner, holy crap! Wow,
CFL.RR.com.
wow.
God,
I used to have Earthlink too.
I lost that password. I never could get back into it.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, all right. So, any news to share before we dive into today's
Yeah,
topic?
I'm exhausted, Trinity. It got
Oh,
in after my plane was late last night. I didn't get into like 1 a.m.
oh boy,
So
that sucks.
it
Well,
feels like a weekend, but it's not. It's only Tuesday.
yeah, yeah. You know what? You kind of hit me with that one because I was thinking the same thing this morning. When I woke up, I was like, "Dang, man, it's already Friday." And I was like,
Yeah,
"No, wait a minute, it's only
yeah.
Tuesday."
Yeah, I've already been to Philly and Atlantic City and
Yeah,
back this week. I've already worked this week.
I've
I'm done.
been everywhere, man. All right, um, so today's show, you only know the title, so
That's right.
let you know where the title came from, and
Okay.
let's figure out where we can drive this thing.
Educate me.
That's right. So the title here is "They Don't Have to," and I chose that title because so I've noticed in my own relationships, both friendships, but mostly like with my wife, you know, a little bit relationship, a little bit of like friendships,
Oh,
a lot of coworker type situations as well, politically for sure. Um, but what I've noticed is we as individuals will interact with somebody and we will decide for them what we think that they should do, say, think, or feel. We already have it established. This is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to think. This is what you're going to feel. And then when they don't meet those expectations, we get like angry at them. We get resentful at them and like, what, and we get aggravated and mad. And then when the person's like, dude, what are you mad at? Why are you? They're like, well, you didn't do this or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I wasn't going to do that. Right. Like,
Right.
and so what I've noticed is like, we'll get mad at somebody for not meeting our expectations. But what I want us to talk about today is the idea of they don't have to.
Right.
Right. Like, it's not their job to live up to your expectations. It's we talk an awful lot about accepting them for who they are. We talk an awful lot for, love them where they're at, that kind of stuff. Do we really practice that though? I mean, we say that we do, but
I do. I don't know about you in your
Maybe.
world, but I do.
Maybe.
I love you right where you're at, Trinity.
But I think people misconstrue sometimes loving them where they're at means loving them where they're at, not just physically, they're on the couch at the moment. I mean, loving them mentally where they're at, meaning they're going to view things a certain way or whatever it might be, right? It coincides really well, not exactly, but really well with the, I had many discussions in my day with people where they would say, well, they would get mad and like, you just don't understand. I'm like, no, I understand. I just disagree with you. Right. Like, so it's the same kind of concept. It's like, you're not doing what I think you should do. You're not behaving the way I think you should behave. So now I'm going to get mad at you. And so I want us to talk about that. And hopefully we can convince some people to realize that it's not their job to live up to your expectations. Right. So what do you, I'm sure you've experienced that, right?
Oh, no. Everybody lives up to my expectations, Trinity.
Sure.
It's I'm a very blessed man.
Well, if you keep them low.
Yeah. That's the trick, Trinity. See, that's what we should teach. The real trick is keep your expectations so low.
Yes.
That everybody meets or exceeds them.
Well, I remember the first time I told my wife something like that. This was years ago now. I don't remember the scenario. I just remember that there was a conversation happening and she's like, well, you should have done this, or I thought you were going to do this. And the response I gave her, I got to say, I think this is the first time in her life anybody's ever told her this response. I just said, well, it looks to me like you're going to need to adjust your expectations of me a little bit.
Right.
And then she looked at me like, what did this fool just say to me? And I was like, I'm just like, look, man, I'm not owning that, dude. Like, that's on you. Like, you need to adjust your expectations. I never agreed to that. I never I don't know where you got that from, but you can get happy in the same pants you got upset in. Right. And so, I think that's a thing though, right? Like,
well, you've actually said that to me before. So
what's that?
you need to adjust your expectations a little bit.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a freeing thing though too, because it goes both sides, right? Like we've up to this point, I've been focusing on the quote unquote giver of the expectations,
right.
But the recipient of the expectations, it's also a very liberating thing to realize that when somebody's upset at you, because I think the go-to is to feel obligated to live up to their expectations, to apologize or try to remedy your actions to fit what their expectations were. And for some people, that's a never ending, you're never going to reach that bar because every time you do, they're going to raise it to another one. So it's a very liberating thing too, to be like, hey, that's your thing. Like I'm not, my goal isn't, when I was born, I wasn't given a manual that says my job in life is to live up to what you think I should do. Right. Like, and granted, I think there's a fine line, right? Like, I think there's certain behaviors I've had in my life that just weren't conducive to a happy marriage that I had to adjust. I had to compromise, right? That's not what I'm talking about, though.
Right. So. It's kind of like this, Trinity. You know how in anything like sport or any kind of competition, when someone else is just better at something than you. You just do.
Yes.
Right. Like, you don't walk around everywhere with this insane belief that you're stronger and faster than everybody, unless you probably truly are. Right.
Yeah.
But for some reason in decision making or thought process, we all think we're Michael Jordan. Right. Yes. We all think,
I would have done this.
Yeah. My idea or my thought or my way. So you're able to admit that physically or physically or anything like that, you're not number one.
Yeah.
But for some reason in behavior, in thought, you are.
Yeah.
Like, that's what leads us to trouble. And look, I don't have to live up to your expectations because, first of all, you haven't told me what they are. Give me a hint, give me a clue, tell me what you
Right.
want. And what you notice is when you ask that question, people are a little puzzled. Have you ever asked somebody, what do you really want from me? Well, I don't
Yeah.
want anything from you, or I don't need anything from you. No, you do. And you're being kind right now, or you're trying to be respectful right now, but you do want something from me.
Well, the other
What
thing
is
I've gotten when I've asked that question is a list of what they don't want. I've
Right.
gotten that. Like when I say, well, what is it you want?
Right.
It's very hard for people to answer that question oftentimes.
Right.
It's much easier for them to answer what they don't want, right? Like, well, what I don't want is this, this, and this. It's like, well, that's
Yeah.
great, but
Yeah.
you're not really giving me any direction here. Like,
Right.
you're not giving me any ways to go. You're giving me ways to avoid,
Right.
which, okay, awesome.
Right.
But I need a way to go. Like you said, I need to clearly define what your expectation is, and then I can decide if I want to live up to that or not.
Right. Or it's something abstract, right? Or it's something like,
I want to feel this.
yeah, I want love. I want understanding. I want trust. I was like, you got to break that down into
Right.
what are the action steps of that?
You know what? I feel safe putting this one out there, right? Because first of all, she's never going to listen to this. Second of all, it's a pretty benign one.
Unless I send it to her, but yeah, go ahead.
Even then, she wouldn't. She would see the title, like, I'm good. But no. So a conversation my wife and I had early along, like in our marriage, that kind of caused some strife until we ironed it out. And this is years ago now. Was feeling appreciated. Right? We both wanted to feel appreciated. Well, I have the ways that I feel appreciated, and so I would try to do those same things to her, and she would come back to me and she's like, "You never, I don't feel appreciated." I was like, "What do you mean? I do this, this, and this," and it just didn't matter to her because it's like that's not how she feels appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to her, like, "Okay, well, what is it that I can do that's going to make you feel appreciated?" The best part about that one was, see, as dudes, we hear that, we think very logically, like, yeah, of course, like, tell me what it is that you want and I'll do it.
That's it.
What they hear is, no, I want you just to know, or I want you to
Yeah.
want to do I don't want you to do it because I told you to. I want you to do it because you just wanted to. And it's like, well,
but I don't.
I don't want to. Like,
I don't want to do
my
that.
brain doesn't work that way. I want to do these things. But what she didn't understand was, you're not telling me to do these things, right? I'm still an adult. You're just setting, boundaries and parameters of how you feel and what you feel appreciated from, or whatever it might be. And then I'm choosing, do I love you and care for you enough to do those things or not?
Right.
Like, it's still my choice, but you're at least giving me like the blueprint here, so I understand where I'm going.
Be something.
Right?
I want you to appreciate the way that I'm appreciating you, rather than not appreciating the way I'm trying to appreciate you. That's what I want, Trinity.
Makes
That's
total
what I want.
sense. Exactly.
This isn't rocket science. This is relationship 101, baby.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Being the person that somebody wants is tough, and we have found that to be kind of harmful in a lot of ways when you do that in spite of your own needs. That's when it's harmful.
Yeah.
And I preface it by saying that because a lot of people, they'll take that and they'll say, well, you know what, I'm tired of doing for others. I got to do for myself. But as we say often on our shows, two things can be true, right? And you can be the person for others and do for yourself at the same time. They don't have to be in opposition of each other, right? One does not mean the opposite of the other. What it means is that you're supposed to do for others without doing so much that it actually takes a certain toll on you that is harmful to you, right? So if you say what I need is an ear, what I need is someone to listen, well, I can do that. Right. I can do that. Now, if it's painful for me to listen without sharing, feedback back to you or kind of helping you navigate through a certain thing, well, then that's on me, right? But Correct. What you needed from me is an ear and someone to be there for you. And so I have to realize that that's my role with you. And if that's my role with you, I have to realize that boundary. And if I realize that boundary, it's a lot healthier relationship than if I try to fight that boundary. But if I don't tell you when you're in a better place and when you're in a healthier place that, hey, look, you know what I struggle with? You use me to bounce ideas off of. But I feel overwhelmingly, I feel this urge to share back with you. And I feel like I want to help. and I don't think that I can at the moment, or you put up a block, or when I do give you feedback, you don't really do it, and it frustrates me. So that's where I struggle. And then if you're in a good place at the time, you're going to be okay with me saying that, by the way. But
Right.
I can't do it at the moment that you're doing the sharing part. Like you
Yeah.
can't be in a vulnerable moment where you're sharing, and then I try to give you something, and then you say, "Wait, I just want you to listen." They go, "Well, then why didn't you tell me the first one? Don't talk to me then. Go talk to somebody else." Like if you do that at that moment, you're just beating up somebody that's already wounded. That's not cool.
Yeah.
You got to wait a little bit and do it at the right time. And I think that's what's important is timing. Timing is probably the most critical thing in all conversation.
Sure. Well, while you're talking, the other thing that it reminded me of, and this, to be honest with you, could be a show in and of itself, I guess, but
Okay.
it reminded me of.
Last time you said that, you had no memory whatsoever of why you said that. So,
well, that's why we have it all recorded. um, it reminds me of the state of the phrase like "stop expecting you from other people."
there you go.
Right? Like we want others in our lives because they accentuate what we do. Right? Like
Right.
they're not identical copies of us. They're other individuals that they have strengths and things of that nature that we admire or whatever, and we want to, we value those things in those people.
Right.
And yet, as we get closer to them, we tend to start to expect us out of them.
Right.
And it's not necessarily even in interpersonal relationships, right? Like we're seeing it a lot right now in the political realm. That's part of what's going on right now is with both sides that are expecting the other side to behave the way they would.
Mm-hmm.
They're not appreciating the fact of like, well, no, you're different, and that's okay.
Right.
For some, like for whatever reason, we've gotten to a situation where different equals bad now. Just because you have a different perspective or a different way of doing things, it's bad. And
Right.
it's like, well, no, it's different, right? It's going to be different. They have a different upbringing. They have a different life history. They have different memories, different experiences. Their perspective is going to be different. It's not better or worse, right?
Right.
And somehow that's gotten lost and turned into, well, you should do it this way. It's like, well, okay, I hear you. That's how you think, but I grew up this way. Well, it doesn't matter. You should have overcome that. Like, no, it wasn't my job to move to your way of thinking. Like, my job in life wasn't to go through everything I've gone through and end up to where you think I should end up. Like, that wasn't my job. This is where I ended up. This is how I think. This is how I feel. Let's move forward from there.
Right.
And I think that causes an insane amount of problems, right? Like,
yeah.
My wife is always telling me, like, she's brought it up numerous times because we have a son who, I don't want to out him or anything, but I think he identifies as gay. Like, I think that's his thing now. It's not I don't know. It's not one of those things. He's just good old fashioned gay.
What?
Yeah.
Stick to the basics, kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but he went through a period of his life where he was very angry and very resentful of individuals for whatever reason, usually religious reasons, but for whatever reason, just didn't appreciate his lifestyle with the zeal that he thought that they should. Right? They didn't agree with it. They weren't outwardly angry or criticizing or anything else. It's just, I don't agree with that lifestyle. Do your thing. Something I agree with. Well, that would get him angry and resentful. And my wife would always pull him to the side and say, look, man, if you want other people to appreciate and respect your perspective and where you're coming from, you got to respect theirs as well. They're allowed to disagree with that lifestyle. They don't have to agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not allowed to be rude and condescending and mean and abusive and things of that nature. Those things are obviously, past the point of what's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But they're allowed to not agree with you. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they have a different perspective, right? And I think, to me, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is we need to get back to that. And not just on the macro level of politics or race or religion, but even on the micro level of our personal relationships. Because I think so much conflict is caused both macro and micro, right? Like, the macro is obvious, right? Just turn on the TV and just constantly just bickering from opposite ends of the spectrum. But I think on our day-to-day basis, even if you look back, a lot of your conflict might really arise from your expectations of that person that they didn't meet. And I think that if we were just to learn how to adjust those a little bit, that doesn't mean allow people to get away with everything and just treat you poorly. No, but I do believe that there's so much conflict that could be avoided if we learn how to just love them where they're at.
Right.
Right.
And you know what? Let's parlay that into loving yourself where you're at too, because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of internal conflict
Yeah.
about that same expectations. Like I'm not good enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not big enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not
Yeah.
smart enough. Whatever your own personal conflict is with yourself that you start fighting because you're not meeting your own expectations. But maybe your expectations a little bit more comparative to others and what you see in them or what you think you're seeing in them rather than what's actually attainable for you. But some of it is attainable, and that's where your goals come into play. Like, see, athletes get this when you do athletic competitions. You get this when you do something athletic because you can practice to get better. But where is the practice in this? Where's the practice in loving yourself more? Where's the practice in being more open with others? Where's the practice in letting others be more open with you? Where's the practice in being empathetic more with others? Where's the practice in accepting others more? See, that's the problem, right? With a
Yeah.
muscle, we know if we continue to use a muscle, it'll build. If you continue to use a reflex or play with your reflexes, they'll be heightened, right?
Yeah.
If you play with your instincts a little bit, you can even sharpen those instincts up a little bit. But where is the psychological practice if you continue to just be okay with your negative, poor behavior and always expecting the rest of the world to get better and you do nothing to improve your own? Then there's no practice. Then
No.
you're not building that muscle up, and all you're doing is you're building psychological atrophy. That's what's happening. Your brain and psychological self is just shrinking up, and you're becoming more of a nothing, not only to others, but to yourself, because every time you open your mouth, it's just conflict, negativity, and pain caused outward because that's how much pain you are inside.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Right. Like empathy is something that I've always struggled with in my life. And one of the first things I had to learn was be more empathetic to myself in the sense of realizing, hey, these are the things that you've been through. These are how they affected you, and this is why that's a skill that you maybe aren't that great at the moment. And so I had to first give myself compassion, essentially
Mm-hmm.
through empathy. But then I had to practice it, right? Like I do think that there's an you bring up a really good point, right? And once again, I don't know if this is the appropriate show for it or not, but
Mm-hmm.
we have all these great like sayings, even if on our shows, right? We'll say these amazing things, but like how do we do them, right? Like we always say, well, do this or get more empathy. Well, how do you practice that? Like you can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, all right, well, this is what I'm going to do now. Even myself, like that's why I use the term skillful, right? I don't say
Right.
do or don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do or don't, well, then it's over.
Right.
Skillful means okay, I can get better. Um, but the problem is very few people ever talk about how to get better. What are the tools? What are the techniques? How do you practice that? Right.
Yeah.
And for me, I would have to say from a spiritual perspective, mindfulness. Like I practice mindfulness. And so I'm trying to be mindful daily of what's being said back and forth, what the feeling tone is. Like I try to catch myself and acknowledge, I guess, my feeling tone in that moment. When I say feeling tone, I don't necessarily mean feeling per se. What I mean feeling tone is all right. I like it. I don't like it. I don't care. So if I'm with my kids, right? If I'm talking to my kids, I'll have the habit sometimes of trying to correct them a lot,
Hmm.
or trying to teach them or guide them, and it can come off very lecture-ish, right? Like, oh God, Dad's always lecturing, and I don't want to be that way. I have to balance letting them be who they are while at the same token trying to guide them efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I try to do is catch myself. Like if I start to feel myself get irritated or annoyed or fatherly, if you will, right? Maybe they said something and I'm reacting to what they said. I try to catch myself in the middle of that and be like, okay, I can see myself reacting now to whatever perceived event or catastrophe that
Mm-hmm.
was, right? Because as a
Mm-hmm.
parent, that's what we do. We
Right.
hear something that we think immediately this is going to lead to them, homeless on the street somewhere. You know what I mean? Like we immediately go
No,
through
they'll
that.
never be homeless, Trinity. They can always come to your house.
Sure. But the point is it's never just, they had an interaction with a friend at school. It's never just that. It's always, well, if I don't show them the right way with that, then that's going to lead to this. That's going to lead to that. I'm going to be a failure as a parent, and that's that's the neuroses, if you will, that goes through our head in doing so. So my point in the feeling tone is acknowledging that feeling and realizing, hey, wait a minute. I'm not coming from a place of skillfulness at the moment. I'm coming from a place of worry and fear and everything else. Let me catch that and redo it. That is how I practice. I try to be mindful, and that's you could. I know some people try the 10-second rule, meaning you wait 10 seconds before you reply to something. Whatever works for you. I just know for me, I can do two things at once, right? So I can talk and respond while at the same token trying to think in my head, how do I feel about what's coming out of my mouth? And so when I do that, I'll have to stop myself. So there's been many times where I've been talking to my kids and I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry about that. Like I'll have to stop in the middle of the conversation because I can feel like, wait a minute, I'm taking this to a level it doesn't need to go. Let me pause real quick, apologize, let them finish their story, and do more listening than talking, basically. And to me, I think that's how we practice these things, right? That's one way. Is it the only way? Probably not. You might have some other tools, but I do think that we should at least give some ideas on how to practice it, because you bring up an amazing point, dude. Like there's so many of these great psychological things that we hear, like these little fortune cookie sayings and all these memes and stuff that are like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to do that. And then the person wakes up tomorrow, something happens, and then they react. And then they react to that reaction. And then by the end of the day, they're kicking themselves by saying, oh, gosh, man, today was going to be the day that I was going to do different. I just did the same thing. How did I end up here again? Right. And so, yeah, I do think we need to talk about how to practice that.
Yeah, I think one of the questions you bring up a good question when you talk about children, because that's a great example, because we've all probably tried to redirect a child from something potentially harmful for themselves, right?
Sure.
I
would hope.
Yeah. It's like, hey, go run in the street. Go, seriously, run.
It's kind of the goal of parenting.
Yeah. Once my kid gets run over, he'll never do it again. Go out in the street, play.
Yep.
No. I think that I like asking questions. Those therapeutic techniques that work in a counseling office, they work a little bit, as long as they don't catch you doing it, as long as they don't think you're playing psychology on them.
Right.
But asking questions like, well, how do you see that playing out? I mean, I'm serious. I just want to know how you see that playing out. Because obviously I get these visions in my head, but I want to know what your how you see it playing out. And then they start explaining it to you. See.
Sure.
And so as you ask more questions, people will talk themselves into knowing. Well, I know it's not probably a good idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like, if they end up with that kind of sentence, that's good. That's not a bad sentence, because they've talked their way into knowing that what they're thinking or what they're doing is probably not a good idea.
Right.
And then they find their ego getting in the way or their desire getting in the way. And they go, yeah, but I desire something so bad that I'm going to throw intellect and rationale out the window because I desire it. I lust for it. I want it. Right. And so you want them to be able to say that prior to the behavior. So asking questions without being judgmental or sarcastic, that's truly gold, at least for me, because I have a natural tendency to be sarcastic. So asking the question in a non-sarcastic way and being more like, no, I'm really asking, is a good tool.
Sure.
So if you want to be there for somebody, just ask them questions. Like, even if you want to really tell them that's a ridiculous idea, if you want to say that, then just say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but how do you see that playing out? Like, how do you see that person responding to that? And so what happens then? If that person does respond to that, then what happens then? What's your goal? What's your intention then? And you'll see that they planned out every perfect scenario that could exist, and that's why it's going to work. Because everything's going to work exactly out to that perfect scenario that they drew out in their head.
Sure. And then to me, the similar thing works with, because the power dynamic, obviously, with kids is a little bit different.
Right.
I'm not going to feel as hurt or attacked by a child as I am my spouse or a friend or a coworker, right? Because the other thing.
Wait. Time out before you even go there. What did you just say?
I said I'm not going to feel as attacked or judged or whatever from a child as I am a loved one, a coworker, a friend.
You have children,
an equal.
right? You have children, right?
Oh, I didn't say they don't attack, but it's a different.
It doesn't. To me, it hurts worse. I got to hear you. I got to hear you out completely on this one, because I'm like, when my kids do it, coworkers, none of that feels the same as when a kid looks at you, especially if they make a point at the end of it.
Right.
Like at the end, if at the end of whatever they just attacked you with
Right.
makes total freaking sense, and you're like, damn, they got me. That is the most painful thing, because you're like, wait a minute, that's what my parents did, and they were right. Then I had you. I'm supposed to be dominant and smarter than you, and then you just made a point. You just made a point that completely made me feel ridiculous. But you can't let them see it, Trinity. You still got to
Of
be like,
course.
but I'm not ridiculous because I'm dad. So, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking off your point, but
No, no, no.
that tripped me out that you just said that right. I said, wait till your daughter gets a little older. That daughter's gonna hit you in places that you never thought could be hit.
Oh, I'm sure, but so the way I personally approach them, right? Like whether it's I don't even, I wish I could say it was on purpose, but it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Like with my kids, I take it like I view them as like they're still learning, right? They're going to say things that are hurtful or whatever. Like I expect it.
Mhm.
I think that's what it is once again expectations, right? I expect them to say certain things. I expect them to say things like "I hate you," even though they've never done that to me. But I'm sure at some point it might come. Who knows?
Yeah.
But with other people, you don't expect it, right? We should. We just don't. I
Right.
think it's like I don't. I know my wife is going to hurt my feelings at some point, but I don't expect it, right? Like consciously, I expect it, right? I'm not stupid. I get that we're going to hurt each other's feelings. It's part of the game, but I don't expect it, right? Like it's when it happens, it's like, whoa, that cut kind of deep there a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of it is this notion that a lot of people fall into is they should know better. That's where the whole living up to my expectations. I expect you to know better. Why?
Right.
Like no, they have their own thoughts, their own feelings. But I would say the people who have the the ability to hurt more for in my life anyways would be like my wife, for instance. I think my wife has the ability to hurt me more than anybody else out there, and I've freely given that to her. That doesn't mean my children can't hurt me, but it's a different level of hurt. Like
Right.
I take my kids hurt with the understanding of I expected that to happen, so it doesn't sting as much. I can
Mhm.
explain it away, if you will. But when my
Mhm.
wife does it, it's like, whoa, that felt on purpose. You know what I mean? Like that felt like you were trying to. Whereas my kids, it feels like you were inadvertently. You're just growing and expanding your knowledge base and
Right.
who you are. This felt like this felt on purpose, right? And so that's a big difference there for me.
Yeah.
And so with my wife, some of the stuff that she says, I find it harder to skillfully respond to those than to my
Right.
kids.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm always skillful with my kids by any means, but it's a lot harder sometimes to respond skillfully to my wife. Like if she catches me on the right day at the right time and she says something, I've been known to react instead of respond because it's like, whoa, that hurt. I felt that, and I'm gonna hurt you back now, right?
Mhm.
And obviously that's not the skillful response. The skillful response would be like, okay, where was that coming from? Where would you mean by that?
Mhm.
And some days I'm great at that, but other days not so much, right? And so I think that that's part of the deal here too is understanding, once again, this idea that it's not their job to live up to your expectations, right? Like I
Mhm.
want to keep driving that home because,
Yeah.
like for instance, if my wife goes to work and has a bad day or something, right, or
Right.
somebody upsets her, I would expect, in theory, for her to handle that like a mature adult and to come home and leave it at the door, walk in and treat me like
Uh-huh.
she just seen me, whatever. Like that's what I would expect. However, we're not, we're not robots. So if something really affected her at work, she's potentially going to come home and maybe be short, right? She
Right.
might not come home and lay in me or something like that, or come home and be completely rude and obnoxious, but she might come home and be a little bit shorter. The energy might be off. Well, I have two choices, right? Like I can get upset and irritated because I expected her to behave differently and get mad and be like, why are you coming home giving me attitude? Why are you doing this? Get really angry at that as if it was her job to come home and make sure that she ignores and puts aside any of her thoughts for the feelings to cater to my thoughts and feelings. That's one way of doing it. And I think a
Right.
lot of people fall into that trap. But on the flip side of that coin, though, is I need to expect her to be who she is
Right.
and expect her to be, fallible just like the rest of us. So if she comes in and she's like a little bit short, instead of me getting angry and mad, I try to personally say, okay, well, either A, I'm gonna give her some space, or B, I'm going to try to inquire what's going on. right? I'm gonna give her an ear to listen, and if she's not feeling that, then I'm gonna just give her space and let her do her thing instead of getting angry. And that's what I mean by not expecting people to, not living up to somebody else's expectations, if that makes
Mhm.
sense, right? That's a scenario that I see playing out in homes all across America, basically.
What I see is this is why people like pets, right? And this is why people like certain pets, right?
Exactly.
Because if you have a dog and you've been gone and you come home, that dog lets you know, I am so excited that you're home,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I
Like
love that you're
crazy
home.
excited.
Like you cat people, I don't know how you deal with it because that you come home, that cat's like, it's about time. Where you been? I've been hungry. I've been wanting you to, like put some food down, clean my little potty tray out. Like they have a different attitude.
Yes.
But like fish and snake, they don't give a damn. They didn't even know you were gone.
No.
Like there's none of that. That's why those are like secondary pets or tertiary pets. They're not even that important as pets, right? The reason we have dogs high on that list and why people are either dog people or cat people is that need and love and acceptance when you come home. I don't know about you, Trinity, but my problem is that when I come home, like I came home last night at 1:00, dude,
Sure.
my wife met me in the driveway, bro, at 1 a.m. in the morning. She met me in the driveway, and my job is to be like, hey, I got to be as excited to see her as she's excited to see me,
Sure.
right? Because if I just like, what are you doing? And I start immediately complaining because I've done that.
Sure.
Why is that there? Why is this? I have started on comments about the house before I acknowledged the tail wagon in the thing. I've already commented on and I ruined the mood. I've ruined the mood. Like she's like, oh my God, you just come home and you're already. And I go, no, it's just and I try to explain it.
Sure.
But I know what I did, Trina. I know I messed up, right? Because it's like, your dog's all excited to see you, and the first thing you do is smack it on the mouth for jumping up at you.
Get away from
me. You know what I mean? It's like, no, man, just like the dog has to sit calmly, and then you can love it, but don't ignore the damn dog. Like, don't just go do something and ignore the dog, because the dog's like, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see you. Are you not excited to see me? I'm excited to see you. And that's the thing with people, man. We got to realize that they have a certain energy that they experience when they see you. There's a certain energy that they've been waiting to share with you. And if you completely ignore the fact that they have that energy, this is whether they don't have to. Look, they don't have to be equal your energy. You might be just overly excitable. They're tired, or they may be thinking something else. You might have caught them at a different wavelength, but you want them to be at your energy level. And then the person coming in the door wants them to understand, shh, the whole world needs. I just came from noise. I don't want noise here.
Yep.
If you look at 1950s America, everybody understood that. There was a time where, as men, we used to run this place, right? We used to be able to come home and everybody better shut up and leave Dad alone. Dad just had hard day work. Remember that?
Mad Men.
The good old days that I never had. I didn't have those days.
Right.
But there's people that are still activated 1950s mentality.
Right.
And they want everyone to understand it. No, you ain't got it. And now there's a lot of women out there. See, this is the difference, because a lot of women work now. And you all know who you are. You come home in your nursing outfit because you've been nursing all day, dealing with like ridiculous patients that are throwing their urine and feces at you. And then you come home and then people expect to feed me, Mom. What are we having for dinner? What are we doing? Your husband wanting your attention. And you're just like, everybody, that's why Mom needs a little smoke or a little bit of wine. Like, shut everybody. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause she wants everybody to shut up and they're not getting it. See, now that women are definitely working as hard as men as far as out there. They've always worked as hard as men in the house. So that's not what I'm saying. There. Now that women are working out there in the workforce and they're coming home, they're experiencing everything that 1950s males used to experience.
Of course.
And they want the house just as silent and cleaned up as possible. So when that mom comes home, what do? Who left this clothes right here? Pick up this clothes. What are these dishes all doing all over the place? Man, somebody come and clean up these dishes. And women just start complaining as soon as they get home, just like the man used to want the whole house silent. So now you got both people working, right? Both people coming home and both doing it.
Yep.
The man wants everybody to leave him alone. The woman is, why did you put your dirty boots there? You just came in from outside. You're going to leave your dirty boots there? Now, bro, that is not a happy home.
No.
No, because we all want everyone else to prepare where we're about to go to the way we want it prepared. And that's no different than the world out there. We want when we go to work for it to be the kind of work we want it to be. When we go to a restaurant, we want the restaurant to be the kind of restaurant we want it to be. When we come home, we want the home to be but they don't have to. They're gonna be on their own vibration. They're gonna be on their own level. They're gonna be in their own energy level, and they don't have to be at yours. But what you can do is learn how to separate yourself from that if you need it. You can ask a person instead of just popping right off at the mouth. Just say, "Give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. I mean, let me just do this, and I'll be right back. I love you. I love you. I just need to decompress. Give me 5 minutes." And most people will let you have it if you ask for it appropriately.
Of course.
But please, 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 do not set up everyone for failure by the first thing you do is comment on a negative whenever you walk into an environment. I have walked into the house where that stupid little puppy has moved the carpet and eaten the underneath part of the carpet. He's so happy to see me, but we're at right now. I want to beat the shiza out of him,
right?
Because he just tore up an expensive carpet, and I'm looking at him. I'm going, all right, priorities first. He needs to go potty. Let me go take him outside. Priority first. Hi, how are you doing? Outside. Then afterwards, when I'm cleaning, I want him to look at, say, look what you do, and he knows what he did. As soon as I start cleaning up and I tell him, he's like, goes into his little cage. He knows damn well I'm not happy with him. But that is a perfect example of they don't have to. See, because I don't think animals are so basic that we can learn from them.
Yeah.
You first give them the love and attention and affection, then give them the discipline. Or if you can't catch them at the moment they did it, it's useless. It's lost. You can't get it back. Now you got to wait again. So it's no different with people. By the time we treat people a certain way, it's usually 20 years later or 5 years later or hours later, and they don't even know what they did wrong anymore. Like if your kid misbehaved at school, and by the time you catch him is after dinner time, they already what I do. I did, Mom. I just did the kitchen, and you're yelling at them now.
Yeah.
It's again timing. But no, people don't have to respond. You have to learn how to get your own timeout. You have to learn how to take your own breaks. You have to learn how to decompress maybe before you get to that hectic environment. Y'all know you got a hectic environment. Everybody knows if they have a hectic environment at home, right? See, I know I got dogs at home. See, I don't have the kids at home anymore or anything like that. I got a wife and dogs. I know exactly what they're going to do every single time. It's not a secret. So if I don't like it, that's on me. Because that's exactly what I'm going to get. Dana's going to be glad to see me. Matter of fact, I'm more upset when she's not. If I come home and she's like busy, like I'll be like,
right.
Where's the happy to see you, honey? You're playing cat on me. Don't play cat on me. Play dog on me. You know what I mean? I want the tail wagging. You know what I mean?
Well, that reminds me of before I respond to that, it reminds me of the whole. Dogs will look at somebody and say, man, they feed me, they water me, they love me, they must be God. And then the cat's like, look, they feed me, they water me, I must be God.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the cat and the dog.
So true.
But no, I agree with you. So, the scenario that you gave, right? The person coming home to the environment is chaotic, whatever, that just needs 5 minutes.
Right.
The other people, it's not the other people's job to immediately cater to them walking in the door. Like they're allowed to be excited to see you. They've had a completely different experience, and they're allowed to feel what they're feeling. They're allowed to experience their day. And if their day was a optimistic, great day, they're allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. Right. At the flip side of that coin, the person coming home who's had a not so fun experience, who's been exhausted, like they don't have to live up to the expectation of, hey, oh my gosh, I came home and I missed you. Right. I'm so glad to be home. They don't have to do that. And so I think where the balancing act, right, and where I think the skill starts to come in is two things can be true, right? Because oftentimes when the person who's at home, right, if they're excited to see their spouse, well, they're thinking their spouse should be as excited as they are to see them. And when they don't meet that expectation, instead of saying, okay, I can see we're on different paths at the moment and that's okay. No, they feel like, what is wrong with you?
Narrative.
Yeah, that's where the narrative comes in. And that is, you don't like me. I'm not good enough. You hate coming home. You're just a miserable. It's like, whoa. None of those things are true. We're just in different spots at the moment, and that's okay, right? Like And that's what I mean by it's not their job to live up to your expectations, right? But at the same token, two things being true, it's not their job if they're coming home. It's not their job to appreciate your vibe, if you will. And so that's where I think we have to be reasonable, and I don't think we do that enough. I think we're so reactionary and so emotional, and because of the narrative, I know we've talked about doing a narrative show, but because of that narrative that you've all created, it's just you cloud it and you make so much stuff and noise as opposed to just analytically looking at what it is. Two different people who love and care about one another differently had different days. That's it.
Right,
That's all
right,
it is. And now
right.
that you're here, cool. Don't take it personal because it's not personal. It's not like your spouse was like, "Oh, I can't wait to go home and be mean to my spouse." No, man. Like they probably are like in their own world, decompressing for whatever day they had. They walk in the door. The last thing they're interested in doing is being connected. So what you have to do, if you're the recipient of that, reconnect.
Yeah,
Like, because my wife and I have actually had that conversation. So I'm one of the ones that out of sight, out of mind.
yeah.
If you're not directly in front of me, I'm disconnected from you. I'm not sitting around thinking about you. I'm not really missing you that much. I'm whatever's in front of me is what I'm focused on.
Right.
All right. And it has nothing to do with who's on the other end of that. It doesn't mean I care any more or less. Just the way I'm wired, the
Mhm.
things that I've been through in my life, the way my brain responds to things is if you're not in front of me, we're disconnected.
Mhm.
And so there was many times where my wife would be gone, and when she would come home, she would behave as if we've been together all day long and been connected. And then she would feel my energy differently and say, "What's wrong with you? Did you have a bad day?" And then I would get irritated, like, "How can you have spoken to me for 12 seconds and already judge my entire day?" Like, I don't,
Mhm.
and it would irritate me. And then and then it would create this weird like vibe in the air, right? And so I had to explain to my wife, say, "Hey, look, we need to reestablish that connection when we haven't seen each other all day." And it could just be something as simple as what we do now. What her and I do is we greet each other with a hug and a kiss, right? Just it doesn't have to be like a makeout set, but just a breaking that barrier of disconnect,
Mhm.
connecting a little bit. Um, I know from my perspective, I've told her is I don't need an agenda of your day. I need to know
Mhm.
what the feeling was. That's the vulnerability that I'm
Right.
looking for to connect with. I
Right.
don't need you to come home and necessarily, I don't need you to immediately just lay into, oh, that stupid person did this and did this. I'll listen to all those things. But if you're wanting that connection, I need you to tell me with how you felt. Like I was upset today when this happened, or I need you to show me some vulnerability, some emotion, and then I'll connect with you. And then that immediately erases the disconnect that I've had all day.
Hmm.
But if you come home and you take for granted that you're already connected and you're expecting that same thing from me, you're not going to get it.
Mhm.
Because when you walk in, I'm like, oh, some lady came to my house, right? Like, obviously, I know it's my wife, but I'm going to emotionally respond to it as just some lady because I'm not really connected to you all day. And so that's these are the things that you have to navigate and you have to talk about, right?
Right.
Like not just in a spousal relationship, but in all of them. We cannot keep walking around expecting these other people to magically live up to every expectation we have of them in our heads and then getting mad when they don't. And
Mhm.
that's for both sides because I promise you, if you're upset about them not living up to your expectations, I promise you they're also upset at you for not living up to their
Amen to that, bro.
expectations,
Amen to that.
right? As high as your white horse is, I promise you they're on one equally as high, if not higher, right? I've never met a couple ever in my entire life, whether it be spousal, friends, or whatever, where one person says, "Well, I don't like it when they do this," that the other person does immediately come back with, "Well, I don't like it when you do that." Like, so this idea that this other person is just 100% absolutely happy and thinks it's perfection and the other one's miserable does not exist.
Right.
It just was that the when you point a finger, there's three more pointing back at you, right? It's
Well,
the same thing.
well, I'll tell you what I want, Trinity. I'm very clear.
Well, let me write this down.
Yeah, you better write down. You ever watch those shows where like the people live in those outrageously large mansions and the whole staff is outside in their white coats, lined
Waiting their
up?
arrival.
They're all lined up, right? You
Yeah.
you 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 pull up.
Was this
Someone
Downton Abbey or something like that?
I don't know, but they open the door for you, and the butler and the house person they got everybody, all the staff lined up. And as soon as you get there, they give you whatever you like to drink. They give you, like a fresh little wet towel if you want to wet your hands or your face or whatever, just like to freshen up. Whatever. They're all there to serve you. As soon as you get there, everybody says the same thing. Welcome home. Welcome home. Good to have you. You get all the greetings from all the staff. You never see that person have to go and say, "Oh, well, hi to you and hi to you and hi." No, that's not my job. I'm the one with the staff. So the whole staff is lined up and they're all saying, "How do you do?" And I can just walk by, guys, and just like go. I don't even have to acknowledge them if I don't want to.
Sure. Like Coming to America.
I love Trinity. I have this crazy desire to have that without having to spend that kind of money. How do you get that on my budget? That's what I want.
You go to sleep and you dream it up.
Because I know in my head that's what I want. And the only reason I know I want it is because when I don't get like the greetings and the what can I do for you when you get there, I'm like, I was out there working for everybody, right? I mean, I'm the workhorse, right? That's what I was doing. Now my kids are gone, and
Sure.
well, at least one of them is. The other one's half here. I'm still paying for everything. So, but they need. You know what I mean? They need. Sure. So what I'm doing is like, I know that I like and want gratitude for that. I've had to learn how to be okay with. They just are going to show gratitude differently than I want, because that's what I want.
Sure.
I say it in a dramatic way, in a humorous way, but I know psychologically that's what my head wants. It wants everybody to be grateful, thank me for doing it, and then now I can go like, well, how was your day? Now, what did you guys do? Right. Now after I've settled, I want to hear everything. What did I miss?
Sure.
What did I go? You know what I mean? And that's I know that's how my brain operates best.
And what I was trying to get at my previous point is that's okay. Right. So for anybody who's listening to this.
Yes, Trinity, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Well, I didn't say it was okay to get. I'm letting her know in the next.
I'm letting her know in the next one. It's okay.
Sure.
I wish you could hear you as much as you're saying it.
But my point is like, if one spouse is at home or right. and excited or whatever, and the other one comes home and they're grumpy, whatever. Like, it's okay for the spouse at home to want their spouse to come home and say, "Hey, I missed you all day. I'm so glad to be home." And it's okay for the spouse that's coming home to want their partner to be ecstatic, right? Or to be quiet and things of that nature. It's not okay to get pissed off and angry when they don't give it to you. That's what
Correct.
I'm talking about. Like,
Correct.
I can want, like, oh my gosh, dude, if I painted a scenario of what I would love for my wife to be on it, I could give you this. She will never do that. And it's okay. I don't get mad at her for not living up to my narrative.
Trinity, the bad thing is if you get it, you'll realize, wait, that's not what I wanted in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. If I got everything I wanted, I would hate it.
Yes.
I think I want it until I get it. And I've proven that in my life because I've gotten a lot of things that I wanted. And I'm like, it wasn't like what I thought it was. Now, some stuff is, don't get me wrong, some stuff is just equally as good. Like I love I love back in the day when we used to have, I don't know how many conversations we had on the air in regards to when you used to say your rich comments, and I'd be like, hey, wait a minute, don't attack the rich. We need it. And we would go about all that. And you say money doesn't solve, I would say money doesn't solve problems. You say we have it. I'll take that problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I'd rather be upset in a Lamborghini than a Pinto.
Right. And it took me a long time to be okay with that kind of comment. It took me a long time to be like, well, you know what? It is a better level of problems.
Of course it is. Because if it wasn't, you'd be giving all your money away.
Right. But I don't want to believe it. I want to believe that money can't solve any problems, but money does solve some problems and then creates bigger problems.
Sure.
So can it create problems? Yes. Can it resolve problems? Yes. But at the end of the day, which side would you rather be on? If you're going to have problems, would you rather not be able to like buy a different environment? You know what I mean? Of course you would. You know what I mean? And I think that's the part that I wasn't able to get before, but it's those kinds of scenarios where we have to almost like go back and forth with it long enough, and you have to be willing to let it absorb inside you so that you can appreciate all sides. And I think that's where we're getting to. We have to appreciate all sides and respect all sides, because without doing so, without evolving, you're not going to go anywhere. Now let's talk about this evolution, because now I just said the word and it just triggered a thought in my head.
Oh boy.
No, because there's a rude way of thinking of evolution. And here's the rude way. All of us have probably said, I used to think that way. I used to want that too. But when you say it to somebody, you have to be mindful that if you say it incorrectly, What they hear you saying is, "Oh, I used to be as dumb as you. Oh, I used to be as ridiculous as you, or I
Yes.
used to be as stupid as you." Whatever. That's what they hear.
Sure.
So you have to be mindful how you say that, even though what you're saying is, you know what? I once had that belief system, but I just I changed my thinking or feeling based on these experiences, and I liked those experiences or those outcomes better than these outcomes. You have to figure out how to say that in a way that doesn't make the other person feel lower, that you're looking down upon them. Like, oh, you'll get there someday, kid. Oh, when you get older, you'll see. When you talk like that to somebody, you have to understand, like, because you said mindfulness earlier, you
Sure.
have to be mindful that that's not respectful. That well, you're not respecting the person where they're at in their own process. You're kind of predicting their outcome, and that just further entrenches them in their ideology. That just makes somebody want to prove you wrong. And so a lot of times in the counseling scenario, we'll talk about success with people because the fear of success and fear of failure is a big deal in people's minds, right? So we'll talk about it. And I'll constantly hear people, their whole goal is to just shove it in someone's face, prove it to someone. And it's like, man, your whole motivation is big. And you have to communicate about this motivation because it's coming from such a negative space
Yeah.
that it's probably not going to go anywhere good.
Well,
It's
that's where
not
that
going to go
keeping
anywhere
score
good.
stuff comes in, right? Like
Uh,
keeping score never works in a relationship.
no,
It's like
no.
just the kiss of death right there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I do like? I like that commercial that way they throw the red flag
Yeah.
and
Oh
they do
yeah.
instant replay.
Oh,
Oh my God.
I don't think I'd want that in my house though.
Oh my God, bro. I should install cameras everywhere in my house.
See, there's some days where I think I would love that and be like, yeah. But then there's other days I am so glad that doesn't exist.
But I need to know that. I need to know that. I need to see my ridiculous stuff and go like, all right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Because there's a lot of times where I'm being told I'm aggressive, and I think I just said it. But I bet if I watch the camera, I'd be like, "Ooh, damn, Lou."
Yeah. I'm fully aware that exact thing has happened. I'm fully aware that I've been told I'm aggressive, and I'm arguing at that moment. Like, what are you talking about? Even though if I'm looking back, oh yeah, of course I was. Like my default is aggression.
Yeah,
So
I felt so soft in times, and then my wife will say something, and then I'll look at my daughter. My daughter like, "Yeah, Dad, you did that." And I'll be like, "Wait, what? You saw that too? You were both psychologically ill?"
yeah, like I said, there's some days and times where I would absolutely love to have that,
Oh
just
my
so I can be like,
gosh.
gotcha. But then there's
Yeah.
other days where I am so thankful that doesn't exist because
Right,
my wife
right.
would be like, gotcha.
Well, the good thing is we're a family of four, so usually me and my youngest, we saw it exactly the same way, and then my daughter, my oldest daughter, and my wife, they saw it exactly their way, and that's so there's this 50-50. But the problem is my youngest daughter is so much like me, except in one aspect, she doesn't get involved. So if she sees it like me, she's like, I'm not there. She's just like, "Boop, I'm
That's
out."
awesome.
She'll just
She's a
sit there
smart
and
girl.
yeah. Oh no, she's good at staying out of it. She's got the okay method down. Pat, she's like Miss, like not involved, doesn't
That's
stir
awesome.
pot, nothing. But later on, if we talk in private, she goes, "Yeah, that was ridiculous." It was like, well, then why didn't you say something? She goes, "Not my business." I'm like, oh, I need you as an
knew I liked
ally,
her.
girl. I need you as an ally, but she won't.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you got any final thoughts before we wrap this
Oh,
up?
I think I had plenty of thoughts, Trinity. I think I'm all thought out.
Right.
So I'm good.
All right. Well, I thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, all those things. They do help our algorithms. Trying to get the word out. We're only as good as the people that hear us. So, as far as my final thoughts, I would just say that keep that in mind. Using the title of the thing is they don't have to, right? We have to, and we're going to do a show eventually on narrative, but they don't have to do what you think they should, right? It would be nice in many instances, but they don't have to. And so when you approach the situation like it's a very black and white, either do it this way or you're wrong, you're going to find yourself upset a lot. And you can find yourself criticizing them, and then that person is going to feel judged. They're going to feel criticized. They're going to feel like no matter what they do, they're wrong all the time. And that's going to create an environment that you're not really wanting to be in. So instead, understanding that we're all allowed to kind of feel what we want, and we got to figure that out. We got to talk through that. We have to understand and love people where they're at, and that goes for both sides. Once again, if you're the recipient of that or you're the giver of that, at any point in your life, you're going to be both. And so we have to appreciate where we're coming from, and we have to find some sort of common ground, some sort of compromise. So, anyways, I think, are we coming on Friday? Are we going to do a Friday show? Are we in the middle?
I'm flying.
Okay.
I think Friday. At some point.
At some point this weekend, we might try to sneak in a political show because I know some things have happened politically, but we're going to try to keep on track. So on Mondays, if you're trying to watch us live, you can do so on Facebook,
Right.
YouTube, and Twitch live under Dope and Dharma. So on Mondays is going to be the Couch Live, where we talk about drug and alcohol issues as well as family related issues and just life in general. On Tuesdays, as you just heard, is Dharma Time, where we try to come from a spiritual perspective and try to find some sort of common ground and happiness. And then on usually Fridays or our weekend show, we try to come up with either sports or politics, things of that nature. So, and as always, if there's a topic you guys want to hear about, feel free to reach out to us and send it to us, and we'll be more than happy to accommodate that. So,
And who knows? Maybe we'll do it tomorrow or something like that.
yeah, maybe.
You never know.
State if they were following us with the little notification button on, they would know every single time we did this.
Right.
So,
Oh, one final note, Trinity, since we're talking about daughters, and this is for the 2020. Have faith in the 2023 daughters. You see that?
Dad, thank you for teaching me how to be a man, even though I'm your. That's awesome.
That's my
That's
baby
awesome.
girls.
Right on. All right, everybody. Now that you know better, do better. Peace.